What's going on, guys? Welcome back. It's Ars. Let's get productive. So I came across a really cool VST. I'm sure you guys have seen it floating around there. It's called the Parallel Aggressor. I'm always looking for something new and cool to help give my tracks more punch. I'm always looking for new effects that aren't too expensive because, let's face it, the market is getting kind of oversaturated and they're also losing their minds with the prices. I'm not 100% sure what's going on right now. I'm not really sure why reverbs are costing $200, but that's a thing that's happening. It's weird. The Parallel Aggressor is affordable and it's really dope. It's really cool. It gives you some really nice saturation on your tracks, some really nice distortion on your tracks, while also giving a lot more punch to your tracks via the embedded compressor and the algorithms that's working within the VST itself. So we're gonna go over the Parallel Aggressor. We're gonna talk about this thing. We're gonna talk about things I like. I don't think there's anything I dislike about this thing, and we'll see what it's all about. And you'll find out if it's something you should pick up. So let's get right into it. So just to break down really quickly what exactly the Parallel Aggressor is, what it does, how it can help you in your workflow, and what you would be using it for if you're creating a track. The Parallel Aggressor focuses primarily on parallel processing. So what that is basically is taking an audio signal and boosting that signal by breaking it up into multiple tracks, multiple signals, and then funneling it all through a dry signal. So you're taking one signal, you're making multiple copies of that signal and kind of stacking them on top of each other, which makes it stronger. What the Parallel Aggressor does is it takes that concept to the next level. So it's a form of parallel compression. So it takes whatever signal you're placing the plugin on. So say you decide to place the Parallel Aggressor on your kick drum. It's going to take the audio signal of the kick drum and break it up into three signals. On the left side, you're going to have your compression, and that's going to be on one signal. In the middle, you're going to have your dry signal, which is just the kick drum before anything is added to it, just the original signal, the dry signal. And on the right side, you have a saturation distortion effect, and it's gonna take those three signals and bring it into one. So it's gonna boost the sound of your kick drum, it's gonna boost the sound of your snare, or whatever you're using the plugin on. So let's get into it really quickly, and I'll break down and show you exactly what it is I'm talking about in real time. Talking about. I don't know why I said it like that, like a noob. But anyway, so if you see right here, what I have going on the screen right here is one of my tracks. It's called Aloe. Now, me personally, I like to make a lot of beats that are very wide sounding and they have a very wide stereo feel to them. So a lot of my melodies have a lot of reverb and just a lot of things happening in it that if I don't EQ and boost certain drum instruments the proper way, they can get kind of lost in that stereo field and get lost in the sound. So a plugin like Parallel Aggressor comes in really handy with a song that has a lot going on because it can really make that kick drum and that snare pierce through all of that sound and all of those effects and reverbs and all of those kind of things. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna play this track without the Parallel Aggressor on. On this track, I placed the Parallel Aggressor on the kick and I placed it on the snare. So really pay attention to the kick and the snare when I'm playing this, and you can hear how it is as the before, and then I'll show you what the Parallel Aggressor does to boost that signal. So as you can see, it's there. The kick and the snare is there, but it's getting a little bit lost in the bass. It's getting a little bit lost in the vocal sample and the reverb that's added to that vocal sample. So what we want to do is we want to compress the kick and we want to compress the snare to kind of boost the signal a little bit and have it cut through the track a little bit. Now, the reason I like Parallel Aggressor is a lot of times if you add a compressor to a kick and a snare, to really get it to cut through certain songs, you might boost it a little bit too much, and then the kick will end up sounding overcompressed. And I don't like to overcompress my kick drum because I don't want to lose that low end. I don't want to lose the dynamics of the kick and the snare because, and especially in hip hop songs, those are like some of the most important parts of the whole entire song. That's what makes the song, is the bass, the kick, and the snare. So the Parallel Aggressor does a really good job at taking compression and taking distortion and funneling it through that dry signal, and then letting you adjust how much of it you want to add on to that dry signal so that you don't over compress the kick. So let's open up the Parallel Aggressor. I'm going to open it up on the kick track. So this is the Parallel Aggressor here. This is the GUI. Since it's the first thing that popped up, let's take a quick look at it. You have 3 different skins. So this is my favorite one, the gray and the orange. It's gray, orange, and like a darkish gray. I really like this one. I think it looks really cool. I think the GUI looks really cool just in general. I like simple GUIs that look clean. And this is one of those, like simple, clean, has kind of a futuristic look to it. But you can tell the designers not only knew what they were doing aesthetically, but they took the time to pick colors that work well together. And I just like how it looks. It looks dope. You can go through different skins. Like I said, this is my favorite. They also have the dark theme. I call this the midnight theme. It's black, gray. It's black, dark gray, and it also has that orange in the wheels here. And you have the knobs, the buttons at the bottom are highlighted in that baby blue color. And then you have the white, the really clean white and gray and orange. Like I said, the gray and orange, this is my favorite theme. But I like all of the colors, and I think it's really cool that you can change the skins. So on the left side here, you have what they're calling the spank knob. This is your compressor, essentially. This is where you're adding your compression to the dry signal. And on the right side here, you have your heat knob, which is basically your saturation effect and your distortion effect. On each side of the plugin, so on the left side underneath the spank knob, you have these buttons down here that apply to that effect. And on the right side underneath the heat knob, you have these buttons down here that apply to that effect. And I'll go through the buttons really quickly. So for the spank knob, you have the extra punch button. You have the extra smack button right here. You have the low preserve button. And you have the mono button. The mono button does pretty much what it does. It basically takes that signal and turns it into a mono signal. The low preserve button, when you push that button in, it's going to save the low end. It's going to save the dynamics of the low end of whatever it is you're using it on. So I believe it's pretty much going to skip adding the effect to anything below probably about 100 hertz. I'm not 100% sure, but it's probably about 100 hertz. Anything below that, it's going to not compress it. It's going to not add compression to it. So that way you're saving the dynamics of that. So I like to keep that button pushed in. You have extra smack, which does pretty much what it says it does. Just adds a little bit of extra knock to that compressor. And you have extra punch, which does what it says it does. Adds even more knock to the compressor. So you can just kind of fiddle between the two of these and see what sounds right to you, and you know, funnel it through the spank effect here. On the right side, you have your heat effect, which is distortion saturation. You have extra hot, which gives you a bit of grit. Like I feel like it's more high frequency grit. You have your tone here, which gives you a little more distortion in those mid-range frequencies. And you also have a low preserve button here, which is, it acts the same way as the low preserve on the compressor side, which is it saves the low end, so it's not going to add any distortion or any grit to anything under, again, I'm going to say about 100 hertz. Don't quote me on that. That might not be what it is, but it's pretty much skipping the low end and only adding the effect to everything in the mid lows, mid highs, and but on the distortion effect here, the heat effect, you have this button here, which is high cut. So you can also skip some of the high frequencies and only add that effect to the mid range. Sorry about that. I don't push this button down too much because I kind of like how the heat sounds on everything. But every once in a while, especially like I'm going to show you for the kick drum, I kind of like to push this high cut button down because I don't want to add distortion, too much distortion to the ultra high frequencies. I kind of want to focus that distortion on the mid range where it's cutting through and just give it more grit. So it still has the knock, it still has the grit, but it doesn't sound too ashy, and I call it ashy. That's my definition of it, but you know, that raspy grittiness. But so anyway, we have 3 faders here. You can kind of think of a parallel compressor as mixing for an effect. So like, say you have this on your kick drum, and that's the audio signal you want to use this on. It's going to split that audio signal into 3 signals. One signal is going to add the compressor to it, another signal is going to add the distortion, and the middle signal is going to just be the dry signal. And you're going to have 3 faders to balance how the effect of the compressor and the effect of the distortion is added to the dry signal. So basically what the parallel aggressor is doing is allowing you to mix 2 different effects into a dry signal. That way you're not getting too much of anything. You can balance how much of everything you want and get it exactly right and get it sounding exactly how you want it to sound without losing too much dynamics of that original signal. So the way you do it here is you would solo. The way I do it is I solo the spank side, which is the compressor side. You just hit this solo button here, and that way you can focus on just what spank is doing. So I'm going to play the kick right now, and I'm going to play it without this compressor on, and then I'm gonna start introducing the compressor to it, and I'll show you how it's working. So this is the kick without anything on it. So that's the kick without anything on it. Now I want that to have a little bit more knock and cut through the track a little bit, so I would turn on the parallel aggressor, and I would solo this left side here, the spank knob, and I would go through the wheel here, which tells you how much compression you want to add to that dry signal. You can go anywhere from 0 to 100, and then you can mess with the buttons down here to see how you want to augment that compressor and get the effect sounding how you want the effect to sound. So we're going to use this fader here. We're going to start from 0, and we're going to play. And I can boost the signal. Now, this is with the compressor on 100 and all the buttons pushed down. So I have extra punch, extra smack, low preserve on, and mono on. I'm going to turn these buttons off, and I'm going to show you what each button is doing. So this is the spank on 100. I would start with one thing, and kind of what I would do is I would start with one thing and kind of work my way down the aisle to get everything sounding how I want. So I'm going to start with just the knob here, the spank knob, and get that sounding how I want it to sound. So I'll start at 100. And I'll turn it down until it's doing its job, but it's not sounding over compressed. See, so that sounds really muffled because I turned it all the way down to 45. I want to get a little bit more knock, so I'm going to turn it up. See, so at 65, I'm getting more knock on those higher frequencies, but I'm also still preserving some of that low end. I can hear that low end in there. So I like how that sounds. I have the effect turned up to about 3.1, negative 3.1 decibels, and it's soloed right now. So let's hear how it sounds when you add extra punch. And now the extra punch is on. and you can see it's clicking, it's hitting a little bit harder. It's starting to sound a little bit too compressed, but I like how it sounds with the extra punch. So I would keep it on, but I would just turn the dial a little bit lower than 65, because now that I added the extra punch, it's sounding a little too compressed at 65. So I'll turn it down a little bit more. So that feels good to me there. I already like how that sounds, so I'm not going to add extra smack. But if you want, I'll let you hear how it sounds with extra smack, just so you can hear what extra smack is doing. That's it with extra smack. But I'm going to turn it off because I'm not really feeling how it sounds with it on. I'm going to turn on the low preserve, so you can hear what it sounds like with the low preserve on. I always keep the low preserve on when I'm mixing this on a kick, because I don't want to lose that low end of the kick. So everything you're hearing right now is actually it's compressing the high ends of the kick, but it's also compressing the lower frequencies of the kick. So now I'm gonna turn on the low preserve, and you're gonna be able to hear more of the lower frequencies of the kicks, the dynamics of those lower frequencies. You're going to hear that piercing through a little bit more. So this is with the compressor compressing the low end of the kick. And now I'm going to turn on the low preserve button, and you'll hear as you can hear, there's more bass coming through. So it's skipping over those lower frequencies and only adding compression to the higher frequencies. And that's what I really want. So now I'm getting that thump, but I'm also getting that warmth of the kick. And when it comes to drums and hip-hop tracks, I like to keep them on mono. So I'm going to just turn the mono button on just to funnel everything through a mono signal, because I'm putting this effect on a kick drum. And so I turn this knob all the way down, and I slowly start I turn this fader all the way down, and I slowly start introducing the fader till I like the volume and how it sounds. Now after I do that, I go over to the heat side. And now I'm going to do the same thing I did with the compressor side on the spank. I'm going to do that on the heat side, but I'm just going to focus on the distortion, just getting some of that grit so that it shows up on your smaller speakers and, you know, your laptops and your cell phones. Everything we just did with the spank, we're going to do with heat. So let's hear heat. Obviously, that sounds like way too much distortion, but this is at 100%. Let me turn all of these buttons down here off so we can just hear the distortion. There we go. So I'm going to dial this back a little bit till it sounds a little more normal. So I'm liking how 75 sounds. Now I'm going to probably end up turning that dial down a little bit more once I start adding extra hot and tone and, you know, pushing these buttons down here. It's going to add even more of the effect to it, and it's going to probably make me turn the dial down. But that's pretty much what you're doing, just balancing the effects through the dry signal. So we're at 75 with heat. I'm going to turn on extra hot. Yeah, so I just turned it down to 72. It was at 75. I turned extra hot on. I like how it sounds at 72. And let's see how it sounds with the tone. I'm going to turn the extra hot off because I just want to hear how it sounds with the tone button pushed down. I like those together. I like how extra hot and tone sounds, both buttons pushed down together. So I'm going to add both of them and just turn the knob down so it's not overpowering with the distortion and the saturation. And of course, we're going to turn on the low preserve button to skip over that low end. There, we're getting more warmth now. We're getting more sub. And for this kick specifically, I actually like how it sounds with the high cut button on. You know, skipping those super high frequencies. I think the kick sounds a little more solid and less compressed with the high cut button pushed down. So I'm gonna have all of the buttons pushed down on this side, every button except the extra smack button pushed down on the compressor side. And now let me balance the audio signal of the heat effect. Now I'm gonna turn solo off. And what we're basically doing at this point, because we have all of the settings for the effect set how we like it, now we're using these faders to balance the compressor and balance that distortion with the dry signal here in the middle and get the kick sounding exactly how we want it to sound. Not over compressed, not over distorted, but having those things working for you the way you want it to work for you to maintain the dynamics of whatever instrument you're using this thing on. So that's pretty much how you use the parallel aggressor. So just to recap really quickly what we just finished doing, I'm going to play the kick without this effect on, and then I'm going to turn the effect on and let you hear what's happening and what a difference it made. And I'm going to do the same thing with the music actually playing, with all the instruments playing, so you can hear how it's affected the way the kick sits in the song. So this is the kick without the parallel aggressor on. And this is the kick after we've added the parallel aggressor and added the settings and tweaked them to the way we like it. So once again, parallel aggressor off, on. Off, on. So you can see it gave it a little more grit, it gave it a little more punch. And now let's hear how that sounds with the music playing, with everything playing. So this is the beat with parallel aggressor off. This is the beat. Okay, and now with it on. With it off. With it on. With it off. With it on. So that is parallel aggressor. I really like this thing. I like the way it allows you to balance the two signals into the dry signal so that I can get what I'm looking for through parallel compression and not have it squash the dynamics out of my sound. You can use this thing on anything. So far I've tried it on a kick drum, I've tried it on a snare drum. I love what it does with my drums. I absolutely love what it does with bass. It sounds great on bass. One thing I didn't show you, one thing I forgot to show you is up here you have presets. They have a lot of presets already in here for you to kind of go through and play around with, and you can see what the extremes are and what this thing can actually do. I already made my preset. It says R set down here, so you can save your own presets to, you know, your liking. And if you want to bypass the plugin when you're doing whatever you're doing, you can just hit that baby audio logo up at the top, and it will bypass. You click the button, and it'll turn back on. And right here, you have your output signal right down here. You have the auto gain. That's another thing I forgot to show you. I'm sorry about that. The auto gain button is basically going to balance the two frequencies, not the two frequencies. It's going to balance the two signals through the dry signal, and it's going to give you a constant balance no matter what it is that you're doing. So I'll let you hear the kick drum with the auto gain turned off, and I'll let you hear it with the auto gain turned on. So let's find it. Okay, kick drum right here, solo it. So this is with the auto gain turned on. I balanced the settings of the effects. I balanced them the way that I wanted them to sound. And I funneled them through the dry signal the way I wanted them to sound. And the auto gain just made sure that on the output tip, nothing sounded too crazy and out of control. And that's the same settings that I have already. This is it with the auto gain turned off. So it's the same exact settings. It's just not doing anything to help you keep any kind of balance as far as volume is concerned. And that may be what you want, depending on what it is you're doing. You may not want it to kind of like, squash any of the audio signal and balance it out for you. But I kind of like what it does. I like that it sounds natural in what it's doing. So I tend to keep that button pushed down because I like how it sounds when it's keeping it balanced. But yeah, you can use that at your, however you want to use it. It's your choice. Do I think Parallel Aggressor is a plugin that you should check out? Absolutely. It's definitely one of my favorite plugins that I've happened to get my hands across as of recently. I've been using it on pretty much every beat I've done so far. I was using the Smack Attack plugin by Waves, and I kind of switched over from Smack Attack to this thing only because I feel like this thing preserves a little bit more of that natural, the natural dynamics of the kick drum when you're using it on the kick drum. Smack Attack, it does its job well. I also like Smack Attack, and I still use Smack Attack. I use it on my snare sometimes. I still use Smack Attack, but I feel like Smack Attack over compresses sometimes, and this thing really allows you to really dig in there. Well, the difference is this is to be used more so as a form of parallel compression, whereas Smack Attack is just a compressor. Just makes your kick drum or whatever you use it on knock really hard, so it's going to compress the hell out of it. This is strictly focused to parallel compression. And I love this thing, man. So you should definitely check out Parallel Aggressor by Baby Audio. It's a great plugin, and I think it's something that you guys are going to be using on a lot of instruments, a lot of sounds, a lot of sessions, a lot of tracks. And I hope that they come out with more skins, because I do like the different color combinations that they have. I like this black and orange one, but I would like to see some other colors. These are all kind of in the same shade and color spectrum. I would love to see some other colors, like drastically different colors. And it might actually be kind of cool if you could actually pick the colors you want it to be. Like I could customize my own skin and make it whatever color I want it to be. That would be really cool. But I digress. So that was the Parallel Aggressor by Baby Audio, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know down in the comment section if you've been using it, and I would love to hear what some of the effects have been after using the plugin on your beats. If you want to send, someone asked me the other day about sending me some beats and like maybe we can work on stuff together. I'm open to working with all producers. If you want to collaborate, maybe you have some drums you need a melody to, or maybe you have a melody you want some drums added to and you want to work with me, I love to work with you guys. So please shoot me an email. It's arsineymusic@gmail.com, ARSINEYMUSIC@gmail.com, and send me what you guys are working on, and I'll send you something back, and we can collaborate that way. Or follow me on IG and just DM me. It's the same thing, Arsiney Music, and let's work. Talk to you guys later. Peace.